Welcome back. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to take our knowledge of Da Vinci's ideal proportions and we're going to apply it to doing a portrait of an actual person. That actual person is me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing the ideal proportions that we talked about in the last video directly onto this face that I printed off of myself. If you don't have a print off, what you can do is just go onto your Chromebook, lay a piece of paper over your face, and maybe just draw out the ideal proportions from there. Just kind of lay it on top and gently trace so you don't do any damage to your screen. I would recommend using a dull pencil for that if you need to use that method at all. Since most of you are also familiar with Pixlr, what you could do is take a picture of yourself, bring it into Pixlr, and try and make some of those guidelines with your mouse or with the trackpad and your finger. That one might actually be the safest method. I'm going to actually recommend that one instead. So you can see that I'm writing on the side of my page. What I'm doing is basically taking stock of how my face is different from Da Vinci's ideal form, right? So I'm saying that my head is wider, especially at the bottom where my jaw is, than the ideal form, right? I'm also noticing that my mouth falls higher up on my face than the guideline that we would typically make, and also that my eyes are a little bit above what the normal guideline for eyeballs are on Da Vinci's ideal form. So I'm just making those observations, writing them down so I really understand, okay, like these are the changes I need to make when I start doing my portrait. So I'm going to begin this portrait the same way I began the last one, which is to use some guiding lines to really get a nice oval for the starting shape, and then I'm going to darken in lines that I really like, just so I can have a good foundation. And then I'm going to draw in some guiding lines, right? One right in the middle of the face vertically, one right in the middle of the face horizontally, and then I'm going to draw in the line that's halfway between the eye line and the chin for the nose, and halfway between the bottom of the nose and the chin for the mouth guideline. I'm placing my eyes now, and as you can see, they're a little bit off-center, and the reason for that is because my face is a little bit tilted, a little bit pointed to the side in my reference photo. So, as always, I'm going to have my head be about 5 eye widths wide. I've got the 2 main eyes and then an eye on either side and an eye in the middle, so I know that I have the correct width. I'm drawing 2 lines downwards from the inner corner of my eye to show where my nose is supposed to go. And then I also estimated about where the pupil of my eye would be and brought 2 lines downwards for where the corners of my mouth would go. From this point, I'm going to be making changes on my page so that instead of doing Da Vinci's ideal form, what I'm going to be doing is drawing something that looks more accurate to my face, right? So the first observation that I made is that my face, specifically my jaw area, is wider than what the ideal face is. So I made sure that I widened out that area and just really closely looked at my reference to try and get that shape correctly. I'm also working on my eyeballs, which you can see I'm placing slightly above my guideline instead of directly on the guideline, because that's something else that I noticed about my photo. As always, noses are still super hard for me, but I just always start with some rounded edges at the very bottom of my nose guidelines, and then on either side of my vertical guideline right down the middle of my face, I make a couple of nostrils. I'm trying to really pay attention to the shadows that I see on my reference picture, and I'm trying to copy those onto my page when I do a nose. Next, I'm working on the shape of my mouth. I'm looking really closely at my reference picture, but still keeping in mind the guidelines that I made for myself earlier. So you'll notice that even though my mouth is open pretty wide, it actually still has corners. The corners of my mouth are still in about the same place that they would be if my mouth was relaxed. Also, open mouths are like really hard to draw, you guys. Oh, why did I pick this? Ooh. Pro tip. Even though everyone has separate teeth, it looks really, really weird if you draw every single tooth individually. So it's better to draw them as one mass, or maybe just add small details to the teeth rather than detail everything. It just looks like a little bit scary. If that's kind of your style, go ahead, go for it, but it's just important to notice that sometimes simplifying things will actually make things look more appealing and more realistic to your viewer. You can see here, as I'm about to draw my eyebrows, that I realized I never actually measured how my eyebrows line up with Da Vinci's ideal proportions. So really quickly, I used my pencil and just tried to eyeball where the diagonal line from the corner of my nose to my eye to the tip of my eyebrow, whether or not it would fall in the correct place. And I did find it lined up pretty well with what the typical form would be. And then from here, I'm just trying to add more shadows, right? Where the eye and the eyebrow and the nose and the cheek connect, there aren't really any hard planes of the face. It's really just a lot of shadows and trying to figure out all of these strange organic shapes that go with how the form of your face changes. So this is where it's really, really important to look at your source picture and really try and figure out those shadows. A trick that I've found out is actually you can turn your picture upside down and you can turn your drawing upside down, and it kind of helps abstract your mind a little bit. It makes you think about what you're seeing a little bit differently, and it tricks your mind into taking another look and like redigesting the picture that you have. So if you're having some trouble figuring out the shadows of your face and how you should start shading those in with your pencil, I would recommend turning your page, flipping it over, and then just only looking at certain shadows and trying to fill those in. Rather than think of it as, ooh, I'm going to draw a nose, think of it instead as, okay, I'm going to just draw these shadows in this certain spot on my page. And I think that that'll really help you draw some realistic shadows. Since a lot of my forehead is covered up by my bangs, I decided to go right ahead and start putting those in. Most of my hairline is not visible. There's only a tiny little bit that I see on the left-hand side of my face, and so that I'm just going to go ahead and draw in, and I'm just going ahead and doing big shapes first on my head, and then later on I'll go in with some more detail and add some more of the streaks or the strands of my hair. From this point, it's really all about refinement, darkening shadows, adding highlights as needed. Remember, as you continue to refine, always look back to your reference picture. Alright guys, bye!